How's it going, my evil residents? Today we're going to be taking a look at all of your hot takes regarding Resident Evil Village. You guys highly requested this game in particular, probably because I'm the one that specifically mentioned it in my video. We're going to be going over the hot takes in this game. Unfortunately, I physically do not have the time to include every single person's hot take because I covered about 40 something hot takes in the last video on my community post alone. I got 77 comments. Frankly, as much as I love doing YouTube, I literally do not have time to go through all those hot takes and also work on other videos. So I'm gonna go through about 25 of them. And yeah, if you guys want to see a part two to this, like the video, let me know in the comments, and I will make a part two if it gets 103 likes. If this video gets 103 likes, I'll make a part two for Resident Evil 8 or a sequel, depending on what more people ask for in comments. Anyway, this is going to be just a chill video with some background gameplay. Feel free to ignore it and leave this on just while you're doing something else. Hopefully nothing suspicious. And yeah, let's get right into the video. Starting with my channel members because they give me money and I feel like it. Starting up with Belladonna from my Discord server. Might be a lukewarm take for real, but the House Beneviento section is possibly the scariest thing Capcom has made. The fear that it makes you feel on not only the first playthrough, but I think every other playthrough is unreal. The sound design, the visuals, and storytelling and symbolism put together so well and makes a terrifying experience. And the baby monster, holy shit, absolutely horrific. All in all, it was beautifully crafted, and it's a shame that the rest of the game isn't scary. I, for the most part, agree with this. Oh, I completely forgot. I added a hot take scale for this video. So I used the Resident Evil 5 grenade launcher rounds to make a hot take scale. We have nitrogen, flash, electric, flame, explosive, and acid. So nitrogen take is this is the coldest take imaginable. It's literally liquid nitrogen. Flash grenade tier is this take shocked me, stunned me a little bit, but it didn't physically affect me. Electric tier is okay. This one shocked me. This one was shocking, hence electric rounds. Flame tier, this is a hot take. This is where the takes start getting hot. Explosive tier, that take was so hot that it literally could spontaneously combust. And acid tier is that take is so ridiculously hot that it would literally boil my skin off. So that's how the tiers work. Pretty self-explanatory, but I felt like explaining it. Anyway, back to this hot take. I'm gonna put this one in. I'm gonna put it in flash grenade tier because there is a significant amount of people that on replay just think this section is boring, and I'm one of those people. I've heard that quite a bit, not nearly as often as I've heard people say that the section is just horrifying, which it is. It is horrifying. It is horrifying. But I think especially since you have a pretty good segment of people that just think on repeat playthroughs, it's kind of a slog, like the beginning Resident Evil 7 section. I don't think it's as bad as that because it's more engaging because there's like a puzzle element, and at least I don't replay this game enough for me to remember the solution to the puzzle every single time. So it's fun in that aspect. But other than that, you remember where the baby spawns and stuff, and then you realize you're not in danger for most of it, like at all. So it's okay. So I mostly agree, but I don't think this is the hottest take in the world. But since it is close to a pretty common opinion, I'm just going to put it in flash grenade tier. Next up, from Max the Noodle. The fact they made Mother Miranda one of the reasons why Spencer created Umbrella felt super forced. I agree. This is one of my least favorite storytelling tropes ever. I despise this storytelling trope of, oh, there was actually a secret other character that was there all along, a la like Dr. Monty from Black Ops 3, or I'm trying to think of another one. Dr. Monty is the main one that annoys me and is why I hate this trope. Yeah, I hate this trope. I hate it a lot. I don't like it in this game. I really wish that they were just kept it separate. They took the criticism that RE7 was too separate and acted on it in the stupidest way possible with this plot point here, and I hate it, frankly. So yeah, I'm not totally sure this is a hot take though. I've heard a lot of other people say this that they think that's a little forced. So I'm gonna put this one in flash grenade tier as well because I don't hear about it super often, but I do hear about it more so than I hear about the other side of it. So I'm gonna give it a flash grenade tier just like the last one. Next up from Maya, kicking around the yellow ball in the baby's room was more fun than the rest of the game. You know what? This is getting an explosive tier, explosive rounds tier, because honestly, I'm a little bit of a hater for this game. I'm pretty sure you complained about it in a live stream, or I've complained about this game in some of my Resident Evil 8 videos too. If you've been around the channel a little bit, you know I don't like this game too much. I'm gonna agree. Kicking around the ball is really fun, and I don't have to play through the whole game to do it. I can just boot up the game and go kick around the ball, and that's awesome. The factory section, I have to go replay the whole game. No, thank you. So I'm putting this in explosive tier, and I agree a little bit, but semi-ironically. Next up, from Morana Prime. Morana Prime has two hot takes. Oh my goodness, someone's cheating the system. Mercenaries should have had more characters to play as, or they should have replaced Ethan with another character, maybe another lord. So for that one, I think replacing Ethan is a hot take. That would get you flame rounds tier, but I think saying they should have had more characters is definitely nitrogen tier. So I'm going to meet this in the middle and put it in electric round tier for this first one. I like how Ethan is just extension of the main game. So if you want that experience in Mercenaries, you can have it. And they also have the other characters there for a wildly different experience if you want it. And I really like that. That said, I'm not sure what other characters from this game they could add. Don't add the Hound Wolf Squad. Capcom, no, I don't care about them. Don't add them into anything ever again. Please use that time to do literally anything else. Because you've got Moreau, who I think is literally just too large to fit in most of the mercenaries areas. And then you've got the Benevientos, and it would be like playing as Chucky from Dead by Daylight, which would be kind of funny. No, that would actually be funny. They should have added that. Okay. I agree with you there. And for the second one, Capcom should have allowed you to choose to join Heisenberg as a bad ending, even if it doesn't change the ending that much like an RE7. I 1000% agree with this. They went with the two pointless alternate endings in that game. They could have done a really cool one in this game and just had there be an achievement for it, where the ending is you could still save Rose because maybe they make it where Heisenberg still betrays you because Ethan goes, "Oh, Rose would die if we weaponized her. Okay, we're gonna fight now." Or they could have just committed all the way and just had it be a completely bad ending where Rose dies and you don't fight Heisenberg, but maybe like Miranda kills him and you skip that boss fight, which would be cool for speedrunning. And then at the end, you have that like clip from RE1 Remake Chris when you don't save anyone and he puts his hands on his head and he's like, "Oh no, what have I done?" That would be funny as fuck, but also really depressing. And I feel like that's perfect for Resident Evil. So I 100% agree with this. I haven't heard this before, literally ever. So I'm going to put this take in explosive rounds tier because I've literally never heard this before, but I've also never heard anyone say, "I'm glad this game only has one ending." So I can't quite put it at the top, but it goes here in explosive rounds. Next up, from Blaze MBZ. Village has one of the worst lines of villains in the series. Lady Dimitrescu is underutilized despite being the game's whole marketing. Daughters have no character to them. Mother Miranda is the most bland one-note villain, and Heisenberg is the only one who's fine. He's cool. Donna Beneviento offered a cool set piece, but that's it. I find the Ashford twins more interesting than 5/6 villains of this game. It's part of the reason Village suffers the most, as its story is a good concept, but poorly executed concepts and bland villains make it a fairly mediocre experience for me. It's not bad, but not great. I, for the most part, 1000% agree with this. There's a lot of people that really like all the lords, and I don't quite understand it. I'm gonna put this in flame rounds tier. I hear this kind of often, but not super often. No, I'm gonna move it down to electric rounds tier. I do hear this pretty often. The main part of this I disagree with is that Resident Evil. I cannot speak. Is that Lady Dimitrescu is not that interesting. She is interesting if you read the files. I think they did a bad job of reflecting lore in the actual main writing of the game. Because if you read her files, she's really cool. Same with the sisters. I agree that the sisters are impossible to tell apart in game, all exact, and they all behave exactly the same and sound very similar. That part, completely 100% agree. I can't tell them apart. I can't tell them apart at all. If you put all three of them next to each other with clear views of their face, I could not tell you which is which. I would be able to tell that they're different people and not like clones or something. That I don't think that's good character design. They each should have had slightly different outfits. They all have exactly the same outfit on, which is stupid. I think Moreau, they needed to either double down on him or cut him. Same with Beneviento. Double down or cut it. I think Heisenberg is just as underdeveloped as Lady Dimitrescu is. They both get about 1.5 cutscenes of development, and then they're a looming presence in their area, and then you fight them. They have the exact same amount of development. Both of their areas could have been expanded on, and both of their boss fights could have been expanded on. Like, you fight them both in their regular form, and then you fight them in their monstrous form. And I feel like that would have been a much better game, just having those two locations and the village. Cinema. That would have been cinema. But no, they stuffed in these other two areas that aren't as good and are just super underbaked. 100% agree with this take. It's the main reason I don't like the game. So yeah, this one is fire. This one's fire. Next up, Resident Evil Enjoyer 0314 says, I mean, I know I already did a take on 7, but I think I would like to share. Resident Evil Village was a little much. Started going back to RE5 and 6, but at the same time, it tries so hard to be RE4. I mean, there are a lot of copy paste things from Resident Evil 4, church, castle, attaché case, a more industrial area, etc. I missed the more horror in the village game. I mean, there's a bit in the basement of Donna, but I wish it would be expanded on. I hope they bring more horror back because the people who said RE7 was too scary are probably just used to 5 and 6. For your last comment, I don't think it's true. RE7 is legitimately scary, especially in our first playthrough. It's just fear is super subjective. So saying something is just not scary is a little bit extremely difficult. I don't find Resident Evil to be that scary at all. Like, barely. I think Evil Within is scarier. I think Dead Space is scarier. Most horror movies are not that scary unless it's like The Thing or something like that. Most like horror media is just not scary to me. But I know that that is not super common of a thing to think. So, like I said, it's completely subjective. So I just wanted to say that at the front. Saying that a game is like too scary or not scary, that's completely you and is going to be honestly completely subjective. But for his main criticism of the game being a little much and trying to mimic RE4, I like action Resident Evil. I don't mind it. My first game was Resident Evil 5, so if Resident Evil is a little action horror, is mainly action horror, or if it's horror with some action, I like both. I'm fine with both. Give me both. Give me a series that's horror, give me a series that's action horror, and swap back and forth. That would be incredible in my eyes. So I'm fine with that. I think what I don't like is that the game just feels like diet Resident Evil 4, like you mentioned. It very clearly feels like they were prototyping for Resident Evil 4 remake in their main game, which I don't think was a good angle for this. They needed to like double down on some of the different systems they had, like the cooking, which we will get to in another hot take. They wanted to do their weapon system differently than RE4 and do like each how they have it with each weapon being better. Don't also structure it like the Resident Evil 4 grade system, which is everything that they do that's a little bit unique. It's just crutched on the fact that it's similar to something in RE4 and it's really weird. And the individual stuff they do, like the Four Lords, okay, go fight them. No, but you have to do it in this specific order, like in Resident Evil 4. It's like, dude, are you kidding me? So yeah, 100% agree with this. I have heard this a little bit before, but I'm going to put this in either electric or flame tier. I'm not sure which one, but it goes in the middle somewhere. It is a pretty hot take, but it's not like scalding or anything. Next up, from May True. Not sure if this is a hot take. While I can feel that Capcom increased Ethan's running speed in RE Village, I still feel slow from how big the map is. Thank you. Thank you for saying this. I'm putting this in acid tier. I've never heard anyone say this before. I hate how slow Ethan is. I Why does he run like a bag of bricks? He's so slow. In both games, he is so slow. Even Chris is slow in the freaking in his Modern Warfare section. Oh my god. Yeah, I 100% agree. I don't have anything else to say about this. He's 100% right. He's so slow. He's so slow. And I'm not one of those people that's like, I gotta run through the game as fast as possible. I need to get to places as fast as possible. No, he just feels so freaking slow. If I press the sprint button and it's labeled sprint, character should sprint, not go into a light jog. Make him sprint. Just you're gonna call it a sprint button, make him sprint. That's it. That's the criticism. It's annoying. A lot of games do this. It's really freaking annoying. Next up, from One's One Up. Village is 90% exploration, 10% combat. There isn't any real depth to the weapons you get. No drawbacks or benefits over others. Each new gun is just a straight upgrade from the last one. So using something like the starter pistol or shotgun in New Game Plus is just mostly pointless. I know RE4 and 5 kind of have that issue, not to the extent in Village. RE4 Remake is probably the best version of this game design, since each gun benefits and since each gun has benefits and drawbacks over the other. It's entirely viable to use an upgraded Silver Ghost or W870 in the late game, as there's a bit more action in Village, but then again, maybe Village isn't for me. For your first sentence, Village is 90% exploration, 10% combat, except for Resident Evil 5. That applies to literally every single Resident Evil game. So, I mean, Yeah, it's a Resident Evil game. For the rest, though, you're 100% right. I don't like how the weapon upgrade system is structured in this game. It makes me feel like I wasted all my money, honestly, because yeah, I upgraded the weapon I had, but I could have got by without upgrading it because the upgrades don't do anything. At least like the first like couple tiers that you can afford on a new game don't they basically don't do anything. And then the next weapon you get is immediately better than those. So it's like why use that? Besides, it looks cool. Even with the money I've already put in the upgrades, the new one's better. So 100% agree with that criticism. I don't like it. It is helped if you have Shadows of Rose and you can get the exclusive upgrades on the weapons, but I think just owning a DLC to make the main gameplay loop of the main game better is not good game design, so it's still not a great system, like, at all. I'm not sure where to rank this take because I heard this specific criticism a lot on my Resident Evil 7 weapons ranked video. So I'm not really sure how hot of a take this actually is. I either don't hear anyone bring it up or complain about it, which means that if people don't bring it up, they're just fine with how it is, at least most of the time. I'm gonna put this in Flame Rounds tier because I've only really heard it on my weapons ranked video. I haven't heard it anywhere else, and that might just be because I'm talking about the weapons, and people normally just don't care about the weapons that much in this game. So I'm gonna put it in Flame Rounds tier, and yeah, that's that one. Next up from Ashley, a real Ashley. Oh my god, Village is just RE4 but worse. Yeah, RE8 ruined Chris. RE8 also isn't good with RE7 gameplay. Kind of agree, but I think it's mainly just that the RE7 simulating that your aim is horrible doesn't work well in heightened action. Shadow of Rose is one of the most boring DLCs and worse than the RE series. I haven't played it, but I think the story is cool. I have no opinion on the gameplay though, so not much to say about that one. RE8 is also praised for being scary when it's scary for only 10 minutes. Yeah, yeah, the only really scary section of this game is the baby section. I can understand why someone would find the factory section scary with like the body horror elements and all the soldats and all that stuff. That stuff is creepy. But other than that, yeah, the game's not super scary. Most of the time, the game is just a little bit gross, which I don't think is the same thing as scary. They underuse some of the characters. Some of the characters. There's a whole Hound Wolf squad that has no personality. Half of the lords, you only know anything about them from files. The two most popular lords in the game are underused. Chris is underused. The only character that's not underused is Ethan. Anyway, that's what I have to say about that. Ethan is basically a wimp and reacted to anything. I wouldn't categorize him as a wimp. I mean, he pretty much just willpowers his way through the entire game, so I'm not really sure where you got that. I mean, if you got your hand chopped off or like fell off of a building or fell through a giant castle, I think you would be terrified too. So, I mean, I kind of understand it. I think he underreacts sometimes even. The guns were annoying to use and it just felt mostly like a walking sim. Also ruined the Ari storyline because somehow, some way Miranda's the co-founder of Umbrella. She's not the co-founder of Umbrella. She is more like I don't think she's the co-founder of Umbrella. Marcus from Resident Evil Zero is the co-founder of Umbrella, but she did like inspire slash plant the seeds for it. So she's kind of like the Eduardo Saverin of Facebook type of character that got pushed out later. That's a really bad example, actually. That is a horrible example. But I'm gonna leave it in because it's funny that I brought up Facebook. Anyway, most of these I don't have strong opinions on, but I just wanted to rant about how most of the characters. How you said some of the characters were underused. Most of the freaking characters were underused. Let's be real. Let's be real about that. So the rest of them, I'm gonna put on either electric or flash tier, but that one I'm gonna put it in flame tier. No, explosive tier because every character besides Ethan was so underbaked in this game, and it's the main reason that the story is just okay. Next up, from Lady of the Abyss. I've definitely got some spicy takes surrounding Village. Firstly, I feel like House Beneviento is quite ill-fitting with the rest of the game and RE in general, as RE isn't just a game series suited to being helpless, and it felt weird that so much of Village was like that. On top of that, I found the baby unintentionally funny. It just looked stupid to me, and the noises it made didn't help. Secondly, I found Heisenberg's factory to be one of the finest moments in the entire series, as it had a fantastic atmosphere and level design, and the soldats are absolutely chef's kiss in terms of game design. I'm a huge fan of cyborgs and robots in general, so they were very much up my alley. For the factory segment, I agree. The factory segment's awesome. I love that section where you walk out and you see all the conveyor belts of the soldats going in the background. You just you feel so screwed looking at that, all those sold ads. It's like, oh no. For the House Beneviento section, honestly, I sort of agree for Resident Evil as a whole, it feels out of place. But for specifically Ethan's era of Resident Evil with 7 and 8, taking the Resident Evil 7 DLC into account with like the Daughters DLC, escaping that room as Clancy, where Marguerite's like, it's good. Or Marguerite's like, eat it, it's good. And then I don't remember the name of the DLC, but if you played it, you know what I'm talking about. Basically, the banned footage tapes. Those are basically that section of Resident Evil 8, but I think better. I think they're better. So it's not completely out of the realm of possibility for Resident Evil, especially with context for how Ethan's section of Resident Evil history kind of is, where there is just horror walking segments. That's just all the tapes in Resident Evil 7, all the DLC that I mentioned. So it's not unprecedented. I understand for Resident Evil as a whole, it feels out of place. Yeah, but it kind of felt out of place in Resident Evil 7 too, but it works for the game. There's not as much of it in this game, so it does feel a little more out of place. So I kind of get that. But that said, I barely hear anyone complain about the Bebe, so I'm going to put this in explosive rounds tier, not quite acid tier, because there is a small subsection of people that just aren't into the Bebe. So yeah, explosive rounds tier. Next up, we have AI Joe Biden and his cameo fighter, Howling Wolf. Always hated Ethan being mold. If he's mold, why didn't Evelyn make him go crazy like the Bakers? It's set up in RE7, but Village is getting blamed for outright saying he's entirely mold. Also, how can he feel hunger and be able to procreate? Yeah, and why didn't nobody notice? He was basically ship of Theseus. You'd think Umbrella would have immediately done tests on Ethan, given he was able to kill Jack, Marguerite, and Evelyn in a single night, or at least draw blood. I'm not sure if it's necessarily a hot take, though, but I remember being confused when Evelyn revealed it. I think finding the twist to be stupid is a hot take, so I'm going to put this in explosive rounds tier, because I hear very few people complain about how many plot holes Ethan being a mold man creates. The game does such a good job of glossing over how many problems this would cause and the implications of this that it's actually hilarious. I think it's hilarious that more people don't talk about this. Mia knew he was a mold creature. Mia knew this. Mia slept with him. Mia knew he died. Mia knew he was a mold man. Mia slept with him. That's all I'm going to say about that. If I'm more particular about what I just said, I will get demonetized. That's all I'm saying about that. I gave you the numbers, just add them together on that. Just that's all I'm going to say about that. For the middle section, also, how can you feel hunger? It does establish in Resident Evil 7 that they do have to eat. That's why they kidnap people, and they're literally eating in the opening section of the game. So that part is a little nitpicky, but like Ethan never went to the doctor. Ethan never went to the doctor when Blue Umbrella came in. I'm sure they like tested them to make sure they were all right and stuff. Nobody like thought it was weird that he was, old. Nobody thought that was weird. And why did nobody tell him? That's kind of important. Like, dude, Ethan, you died. You're a mold guy right now. And also, Blue Umbrella very clearly is not doing good things with bioweapons. They literally took and made T-virus soldiers at the end of this game. Why didn't they experiment on Ethan? They're literally there to get the Megamycete to experiment on it and figure out what's going on with it. That's why they went there. But they had Ethan right there, a perfectly willing and easy to capture test subject, and they just don't capture him. He didn't even know he was Mole. So it makes a lot of plot holes. It's a good twist at the base level. The more you think about it, the more implications that you think that it has for actual like real world day-to-day living. It makes absolutely no sense. So you know what? I'm gonna move this one up to acid tier. I never hear anyone bring this up, and frankly, it's really funny. Just the implications of Mia knew he died. Mia knew he was mold. Mia had a child with him. In that order. In that order. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Next up, from Labor Day Lobster. I don't know if this is a hot take. They rushed Ethan's story with this one. At least one more game would have been great. At least we got Shadows of Bros. Also, the baby part isn't that scary because it takes like 5 to 8 minutes tops if you know where to go. It takes less than 5 minutes, I'm pretty sure, but you're right about that. The baby part is scary on your first playthrough. Every other time, it's like minutely scary if you haven't played it in a while. So I agree on that last part. But for the first part, I don't think Ethan needed a trilogy, especially since Shadows of Rose exists, which really bookends him and Rose. I think 2 games with Ethan is fine. I think if we get a third, that's too much. I think that's too much Ethan. I'm good on Ethan. I don't need more Ethan in my life. I'm fine. So I honestly completely disagree. But I see where you're coming from, how they could have made another game if they needed to, just like to fill out between 7 and 8, or like continued the story after with Rose. I don't think they should because Shadows of Rose bookends everything so well with Rose and Ethan. So I don't hear too many people bring this up that they want more Ethan. So I'm gonna put this one in Flash Grenade tier, and yeah, it's I don't know. I don't think too many people want more Ethan. So I don't think this is no. I'm stupid. I'm like misinterpreting this in my brain. This is a hot take, not a cold take. I'm gonna put this in flame rounds tier. Sorry, I'm completely stupid. Next up from Skylad31, the cooking was underutilized. Straight up factual. 100% true. They wanted to put in the steroids and stabilizers from Resident Evil 7 and didn't know how to do it, and they just played Breath of the Wild, so that they're like, screw it, cooking mechanic. Just they could have added some sort of cooking like on the fly or something like that. They clearly wanted to like add some sort of survival element to this game and just didn't know how to do it because it was an action game and they wanted to be RE4 and also a survival game and also scary. Just this game just feels so directionless sometimes. They had this really cool mechanic that could have given you like unique buffs. Like if you cook this dish with this ingredients, bonus handgun damage, bonus shotgun damage, super fast reload speed, or they could have had dishes be like time based. Basically just double down, steal more from Breath of the Wild. If you're going to steal the concept from Breath of the Wild, steal more. Because currently, as is, what you stole is worthless on its own. Just straight up, it's worthless on its own. If you're going to steal, steal, commit, do crime. I realized I forgot to rank this one. So I never hear anyone talk about this, so I'm going to put it in Flame Rounds tier because it is a hot take, but I feel like most people just don't have an opinion on it. Next up, we have a giant paragraph. I'm just going to leave it on screen the whole time so you can read it on your own, but it's from Symbiote Slinger, and he basically says that all the punch was taken out of Ethan's character arc because you don't see his face. Honestly, I really agree with this. I think it lands okay as is, but never seeing this dude's face is so stupid. It's not thematic in any way. It's literally like that because they didn't show his face in RE7 and thought it was neat and either wanted to save money on mocapping his face, which I don't think is true because they mocap some of his face in Resident Evil and Shadows of Rose. So I don't know. I literally don't understand it. It doesn't make sense. I think they wanted it to be like some like artistic choice, but it doesn't work with the story. It's a personal story with him and his daughter. And you don't show his face. You don't show the most personal part of a person besides like their penis. It's like doesn't make any I don't know why they did this. What really takes the punch out of it of them not showing his face is that if you go into Google and you search Resident Evil 7 Ethan, a render of his face pops up right like fifth result. And it's like it takes all the punch out of it because everyone knows what he looks like. You can so easily find out what he looks like that keeping his face a mystery is stupid. It doesn't supply any sort of twist, any sort of addition to his character arc. It doesn't help me get into his shoes more, like at all. So it's just stupid. It makes no sense. I agree with this. I think a good amount of people agree with this, but I'm gonna put it at either flame rounds or lightning rounds. Not sure it's like a super incredibly hot take. I think most people have just moved on from this by now and like thought like, yeah, that's kind of lame, and then just moved on. But I haven't moved on, Capcom. I haven't moved on. Moving on to the YouTube comments from Ghost Productions 582. Ethan is the best Resident Evil character in terms of being sympathetic and an actual character with a character arc rather than an archetype or one note good guy. For being sympathetic, I can kind of agree. If you're like a parent, I totally get it. But is a character with an actual character arc? Are you kidding me? This Redfield is right there. Albert Wesker has a good character arc. Jill has a pretty decent character arc. Rebecca kind of doesn't. Leon has a really good character arc, especially in the remakes. They really double down on his character arc. So there's plenty of other Resident Evil characters with really good arcs. It's just not as in your face and in one game as it is in this game. So the other character arcs are more so just between games. So I completely disagree with this. I understand where you're coming from. Like as for like a one game arc, it is the most fleshed out, but between games, other characters have a really good arcs. But I'm gonna put this one in flame rounds tier. This one's a pretty spicy take. I wouldn't say it's the most spicy in the world. I've definitely heard this before, but It's pretty good. Next up, we have Rosemary's Child with Jose as a cameo fighter. The Lady D marketing campaign hurt more than it helped. Most of us wanted the castle segment to be longer, and it definitely felt like she was going to be more prevalent because of how quickly she became the face of the game pre-release. Expectations were as high as the top of her cheeks, but they fell flatter than the fly swatter modded into Smack's said cheeks. Oh my god. Besides Lady D, the game falls apart when you leave the castle, is what Jose said. 100% agree. I think it only recovers in the factory section for Jose's part. For the main part, yeah. Capcom usually picks one thing to really market in the game. Like for Resident Evil 4 Remake, they really marketed the village, which completely understandable. Honestly, best part of the game. Same thing for Resident Evil 8. It's the best part of the game. That's why they marketed it. But I really think that it wasn't as big of an issue with Resident Evil 4 Remake because it's a remake. We know what to expect. And a lot of people thought, oh, are they going to cut the island section? We haven't seen any of the island in the marketing. We've seen some of the castle. What's going on with the island? So people clearly think that when Capcom doesn't market something, it's just not going to be in the game as much, which is completely understandable. But then when they do market stuff, it's like a third of the game, like with the bakers. As soon as you get to Lucas's section, most of the bakers are just not a big thing in the story. And once you get to Lucas's section, it's like halfway through the game. So it's really weird how they market stuff sometimes. I understand they don't want to spoil things and they can't like show the rest of the game, but they could have at least shown like, hey, in this game you go to multiple cool areas. And people would have been like, oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. They did not were not super clear about that. They basically saw, oh, people are thirsty for the tall vampire. Repost, which honestly it worked for them. I get why they did it, but I think in the long run it was kind of a mistake for them because people went in, beat Lady D in their first few hours of playing and were like, oh, that's it? Not? That's it? Okay. I do think this is. I'm gonna give this another flame rounds tier. I know I've been giving a lot of flame rounds tiers, but I've heard this quite a bit, so I can't put it any higher. Yeah, I think most people just don't remember the marketing, so or they don't associate the marketing with how the game actually like went. So that's why I only put it in Flame Rounds tier. Next up, from Sir Six Strings. Chris should have been the main character. I could see a version of this game working with Chris as the main character, but I really think the main saving grace, at least for me, for this game, is the fact that Ethan is the main character and I'm interested in seeing his story wrap up. That's the main thing I like about this game, and if they took it out, I don't think I would like the game as much. But also giving Chris more character post RE7. I'm not gonna say no to that because I'm a Chris lover. I love Chris. So honestly, I'm not sure. I think this is a pretty hot take, though. I've not ever seen anyone say this. I'm going to give this explosive rounds tier. It's not so outlandish that it gets acid tier, but this is a pretty spicy one. I'm going to give you explosive rounds tier. I'm going to give you explosive rounds tier on this one. RE8 has the best ending in the entire franchise. Seeing Ethan be an actual character in this game and having this arc conclude, arguably the greatest sacrifice a father could make for their kid is so peak. And the reveal that the B.S.A.A. is unironically using bioweapons really opens potential plot lines, which I hope they follow up on in RE9. Also, it's the only one to ever make me cry, and I've been playing Resident Evil literally my entire life, which only helps it stand out on top. IMO. This is like the complete opposite of the last take that just like dismissed all this and was like, Chris should have been the main character. This is the polar opposite of that one. And I think I agree with this one a lot more than I do the other one, but it is most certainly not a hot take. A lot of people really like Ethan's arc. I do also super agree that the PSAA thing that they went with is so interesting. I really, if they drop that for RE9 or they go in a different direction for RE9 and don't bring that up at all, if I find out how this went down in a file in Resident Evil 9, I'm gonna be livid. Straight up, I'm gonna be mad. It's such a good setup for a Resident Evil game, and if they just drop it in favor of literally just some other random thing, I'm gonna be fuming. This setup, the layup is there. You just gotta put it in the basket. Like, come on, Capcom. Come on. This one is not hot take though, unfortunately. So I'm gonna give it a flash rounds tier. No, I'm sorry. I have to give it a nitrogen tier take. As much as I agree, this is very common. This is a very common sentiment. Next up, this game should have taken a more open approach by allowing you to face the lords in any order. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. He says some other stuff that just thank you, thank you. This is my main criticism of this game. Even Lady Dimitrescu. I know that maybe keep Heisenberg as the last lord, but you don't have to, if you keep Heisenberg as the last lord, you literally don't have to change anything about the story, like at all. You might have to like recode some stuff, obviously, because you're changing parts of the game. But the story is completely exactly the same if you keep the three if you keep Beneviento, Dimitrescu, and Miranda. Let people play them in any order. The game is the same. Game is exactly the same. And then you can choose like, oh, I know for this playthrough, I can go this way, do this lord first, and I have the grenade launcher first. That's outstanding. That's awesome. I think that would add tons of replay value, and it would be cool for speedrunning. It would be cool for achievements like do this lord first, do this lord first. So I really agree with this. This game really needed something like this just to add that little non-linear element to really help separate it from Resident Evil 4. I love this. I've not really heard too many people say this, so I'm going to put it in flame rounds tier, but I've always thought this. I think the lords should have been just non-linear. Next up, Lady D ain't all that. All right, you know what? I'm going to put this in explosive rounds tier because most people love Lady D, myself included. Yeah, she's a little underbaked. All of her character building is in files, but she's cool and she's hot. That's all I have to say about that. Next up, don't know if this was explained, but Chris had multiple chances to explain things to Ethan, especially about killing Mia. Not telling him that Mia in the house was fake just seemed like a bad prank. Oh my god. Describing that as a bad prank is insane, but honestly, it does feel like that. I'm gonna put this in nitrogen tier. This is the coldest take ever. This is the most common criticism I hear about this game. I 100% agree. It's really stupid writing, but this is not a hot take, buddy. I'm sorry. It's just not. Most people think this. Next up, RE8's Lycans are the biggest departure from zombies in this series, even more so than the mold from RE7 and the weird white dudes from Revelations. Yeah, 100% agree. I'm not a big fan of the Lycans. Yeah, they're cool. I don't think they're that fun to fight, especially on harder difficulties where they just tank your bullets and don't react whatsoever. I think that's annoying and I think it's bullshit. But yeah, I agree. I don't hear too many people bring this up that the Lycans are just kind of random. I'm gonna put this in flame rats tier. I agree. I think they're a little much, and I don't think they're that interesting. Next up, Heisenberg's powers are basically magic and feel out of place in Resident Evil. You know what? I never thought about this until I read this comment. Heisenberg's powers are so random and so out of nowhere. The last time we had something this ridiculous in Resident Evil was the opera slugs in Resident Evil 0. I think it's the last time there was something as ridiculous as Magneto powers in Resident Evil. Yeah, you could argue stuff in Resident Evil 6, but like I'm talking like power sets, okay? That's crazy that he just has Magneto powers. And I've never acknowledged that before because the game does such a good job of establishing it in the setting and making it feel natural for the character. It just, yeah. Before reading this comment, I literally just never thought about that. But that's ridiculous. I'm gonna put this in acid tier. I've literally never noticed this before. I'm gonna put this in acid rounds tier. Congrats. This is a spicy freaking take. I've heard nonstop praise about Heisenberg, either that or they think he's underbaked. Never have I heard someone say powers don't make sense, and they don't make sense. That's wow. Thank you for pointing that out. I've literally never noticed how out of place that is. Next up, Chris being an idiot for all of Village is very in character, and this game is his best look in the series. You know what? Honestly, not completely, I mostly agree. I think him wanting to keep Ethan in the dark to keep him away from the situation and not like want to, put him in danger because he knows, oh, you're sleeping with a villain, that would just be kind of weird. And he'd probably do something about that immediately, knowing Ethan. He's very much the type to be like, oh, my family's in danger. My wife is gone. I'm going to go all the way to Louisiana and save her from a crazy house. So Ethan definitely would have done something if Chris had said something and probably fucked something up. And then he literally sacrifices himself to save his child. So, I mean, Ethan gets that dog in him when his family's in danger. So I understand Chris not telling him. I understand that. But what I don't understand is the way Chris went about it. It's written really poorly, and it's just like they purposefully frame it as obtusely to paint him out as much of a villain as possible for a really shitty twist that is like a throw off twist to make you think Chris is the villain. They even do it on the box. It's like, dude, come on. It's landed so poorly. The concept is very in character for Chris. He does not want to lose Ethan. He's lost enough team members. He wants to keep people safe. That works for Chris. The way it's written and presented in the game is so bad. So I'm going to put this not quite in acid tier. I'm going to put this in explosive tier. I 100% agree with you, but you got to acknowledge the way they wrote it in the game is so bad. All right, last three takes. I don't know if this is the right place to leave a hot take. He left this on the original video, but I have one for RE8. I think the middle half of RE8 is really bad. Switching from the end of Lady D boss fight to the start of the factory, which includes the whole House Beneviento and all of Moreau's section, the whole part of the game is 90% completely on rails and really boring on repeat playthroughs. Sure, House Beneviento was cool on our first playthrough, but after that point, it becomes tedium personified. I'd argue the RE7 boat section is better than both House Beneviento and Moreau's sections. Maybe another hot take is that the factory is actually the best part of the game for me. Once you learn the layout of the factory, it actually becomes fun to traverse and has good flow to it. I agree that it's the worst part of the game and the most linear part of the game, but the side explorable optional sections do make it a little bit more engaging than the boat section. I'm a boat section hater. I made that clear in my last video, but 100% agree with you. You're completely right. I'm going to put this in electric rounds tier though, because I've been hearing this a lot throughout this video and in general. So I agree that it's the worst part of the game, but saying it's completely bad, that is a hot take, and that's why I bumped you up a little bit to electric tier. Because just saying it's like completely linear is not totally true because there's a lot of explorables. So also linear does not equal bad. I just think that the game presented itself as non-linear and then gave you linear, and it's like, what the hell? Where are my fries? Where are my fries, Capcom? Second to last, hot take from Banjo Kazooie. I really don't like how similar to Evelyn they program Miranda. As in both of them, stalk you throughout the game with the endgame revelation that Evelyn is the grandma slash Miranda is the old hag. At least Miranda disguised as Mia was a shocking one-off moment, also huge for promotional footage. And finding the real Mia as Chris is an amazing set piece, but the old hag could and should have been her own character like the Duke. Yep, 100%. I never hear anyone bring this up. It's not a huge game changer for the game, so I'm just gonna put it in explosive rounds tier. But yeah, why? Why does Miranda morph into the old lady? It's not set up to make you think that Miranda can shapeshift because it's not clear that the old lady's Miranda until they show it. I don't it doesn't really make that much sense. Yeah, it's why is this there? I've always kind of thought this about this. I don't think it's that big of a deal. It is funny though that they basically just copy pasted how the villains work. It is pretty funny. Our last hot take is from Joining Bread and his two cameo fighters, Jack Morgan and Ice Cream Sundae. RE8 hot take. Castle Dimitrescu is better than Salazar's Castle. Dimitrescu has a specific vampire gothic theme to it, while Salazar's Castle doesn't exactly have a specific theme other than being rich. Aesthetic is fine, I guess, but Salazar's Castle is so much better designed, it's insane. Castle and Village is genuinely one of the worst areas in RE. Salazar's Castle is way better gameplay-wise, though. I'm going to bring a different take on this. So, if you're comparing Castle Dimitrescu to the original castle from the original Resident Evil 4, that is completely preference as far as visuals go, because the original castle very much feels like a Spanish European castle. They did a really good job about that. And the Resident Evil 8 one really feels like a really good Gothic Eastern European castle. It worked. It works really well. They do their own thing really well, and that comes down to your preference, what you prefer. However, if you are comparing the castle from RE4 Remake, Castle Dimitrescu, the castle in RE4 Remake, I agree that the theming is not as good because they reuse so many assets from Castle Dimitrescu. It is insane. Once you notice it, you can't unnotice it. For that, if you haven't noticed it before, I'm sorry. Next time you're playing through Resident Evil 4 Remake, look for Castle Dimitrescu assets. They're everywhere, and it's really distracting. They have the same interior decorator, dude. Same exact interior decorator. So I agree if we're talking about remakes. If we're talking about original Resident Evil 4, I disagree. But design-wise, I'm not a huge fan of the castle from Resident Evil 4 Remake or the original Resident Evil 4. I think it's the longest, most dragging part of the game. I'm one of the weird people that likes the island section because it doubles down on the action and you get to demonstrate all the tools you built up through the game. Especially in RE4 Remake, I feel like the castle is too long in Resident Evil 4 Remake. They needed to trim it down a little bit, condense it, or something. It's too long. In RE4 Original, it's not as much of an issue. Not nearly as much. Castle Dimitrescu, though, I think it has cool ideas. Once you realize how small it is, it's really carried by how long the basement section is. It just you realize it's tiny and it's like, oh, okay, this is a tiny castle. This is you don't go to most of the castle, which is kind of lame. But yeah, I'm gonna end the video here because my voice is failing me. If you liked the video, drop a like. If you disliked it, feel free to dislike it, but please let me know why you disliked it in the comments. If you want to be featured right at the top of these hot takes videos and make sure everyone sees your hot take, feel free to become a member. I always put members of the channel right at the top here. I always put members of the channel right at the top of these just to give them a little extra bonus for their membership so they get more what they paid for. Obviously, no pressure, of course. Whether or not you're a member and you leave a hot take doesn't affect your likelihood to be in the video. It just, if I'm going to include a member's hot take, it's going at the beginning of the video. But if you leave a hot take like, Chris having big biceps is cool, I'm not going to put that in the video. That's like the coldest take ever. Even if you're a member. I'm sorry. That's not going in the video. But yeah, aside from that, we have a Discord if you want to chat about stuff, things, other cool stuff like that. Feel free to join the Discord. And lastly, thank you to all of my channel members. We have our harmless tier residents. We also have our 2 malevolent residents of the channel, Miss Belladonna and King of Horror. Thank you very much for watching, and yeah, stay evil, my residents.